All right, welcome. Today, we are digging into a real literary mystery. We're talking about a manuscript that was discovered long after it was written, and it offers a vision of the world that was so bold, so radical, it might never have been published in its own time.
So let me just start by asking you this. What if a story buried for 200 years imagined a kind of female freedom that, honestly, we're still trying to figure out right now?
The book is called The Exile of Mrs. Ashworth, and it's all about one woman's incredible journey from total social ruin to this radical kind of independence. It's a story about what happens when your world completely collapses, and instead of trying to rebuild it, you decide to build a whole new one from scratch. And here's where it gets really interesting. The whole text comes with this editor's note that frames the story perfectly. It basically suggests that this isn't just some forgotten book. It's a historical what if. It's a peek into a future that maybe just wasn't allowed to happen back then. So let's dive in and meet our heroine. The story doesn't kick off with some grand adventure. Nope. It begins with a quiet, devastating catastrophe in a London drawing room. Our main character is Dorothea Ashworth. She's 34, and she's just found out that her late husband has left her utterly penniless. Now, in the early 19th century, this is basically a death sentence for her entire life as she knows it. Her only options are to be pitied by her family or to live off their charity, what she calls the twin catastrophes of feminine existence. To really get why she's in such a bind, you have to understand the invisible cage she was living in. It was a legal doctrine called coverture. Under this law, Dorothea, as a married woman, basically didn't exist as a legal person. Her property, her rights, her whole identity, it was all absorbed by her husband. So now that he's gone and his money is gone, she is just adrift. Legally and socially, she's a nobody. So, with literally no other choice, she exiles herself to this remote, rundown property way up in the north of England called Ravenscroft. But you know what? This isn't the end of her story. It's really just the beginning. And this place, Ravenscroft, it has this one really weird, really cool feature. A Gothic tower. At first, Dorothea is almost amused by it. She sees herself as a character in a book, leaning into the whole drama of her new, isolated life. But then, she finds a journal. It belonged to a previous resident, the first Mrs. Ashworth, who actually built the tower. And that's when she discovers its true purpose. It wasn't just some fancy architectural detail. It was a philosophical retreat, a space where a woman could exist simply as a thinking person, completely outside of all her prescribed roles. That tower becomes this powerful legacy of female intellectual freedom. And it's in this new world, with this new mindset, that Dorothea's true transformation begins, and it all gets sparked by a meeting with her very unconventional neighbor. Meet Mr. Henry Garrett. He is the local oddball. He's this brilliant scholar who is completely obsessed with geology, and he just spends his days hiking all over the hills with a hammer. Now, what's crucial here is that he isn't looking for a wife, he's looking for fossils. So their connection isn't romantic, at least not at first. It's built on a shared, passionate curiosity for the world. And this one line, from their very first real conversation, it says everything. He doesn't judge her for not knowing about geology. He values her because she wants to learn. He sees her as an intellect, as a mind, not just some poor widow who needs to be rescued. But in their world, a man and a woman meeting as intellectual equals is way more scandalous than a secret affair. And, well, you can probably guess that society is very quick to pass its judgment. So picture this. Dorothea starts taking geology lessons from Mr. Garrett. They're walking the fells, totally unchaperoned, just nerding out about rock formations and the history of the earth. To them, it's just education. But to the local high society, led by the very intimidating Wellesleys, it is a shocking, scandalous breach of every rule in the book. And the punishment from society? It's swift and it's methodical. It's like this slow-motion freezing out. It starts with just some disapproving looks on the path. Then comes a friendly warning from Lady Wellesley over tea. After that, at a public ball, she's basically treated like a ghost. And finally, the invitations just stop coming. She is officially an outcast. So, forced into this isolation, Dorothea and Henry have a choice to make. They can either conform to society's rules, or they can double down on their defiance and create something completely new. And this This is the absolute heart of the novel's radical vision. In a letter to Henry, Dorothea basically rejects the entire institution of marriage. She says, "I'm not looking to go from being an independent woman to a dependent wife." She's wondering if they can invent a totally different kind of relationship.
I mean, what she was proposing was just unbelievably radical. Just look at the contrast here. On one side, you have marriage as it existed, loss of your property, loss of your legal self, a relationship based on social duty. And on the other, what they imagined, financial autonomy, intellectual equality, and a companionship that was freely chosen. So, they make a pact. They decide to conduct an experiment, to try and build a partnership based entirely on these new rules. A life together, yes, but as two complete, independent people. And this brings us all the way back to the manuscript itself. What is this strange, unbelievably forward-thinking novel, and who on earth could have possibly written it? Well, the editor's note drops an absolute bombshell of a theory. The handwriting, the style, the wit, it all has echoes of Jane Austen. Could the absolute master of the marriage plot have secretly, privately written a novel that tried to dismantle the whole thing? It's a wild, fascinating idea. But in the end, the editor kind of suggests we should focus less on the author and more on the text. The real power of The Exile of Mrs. Ashworth isn't who wrote it, but the incredibly relevant questions it's still asking about women, society, and what it truly means to be free. And that leaves us right here with this final question, one that feels just as urgent today as it must have 200 years ago. What does it really mean to build a life and a partnership on your own terms? It's a question this lost novel dared to ask, and one that I think we're all still exploring today.